So in terms of the infrastructure needed for the grid and fleet operations to onboard EV, I'm going to go around the table and ask some of you guys and girls what you think are some of the big challenges. I'm going to start with Alan from Proterra, because they are dependent on the infrastructure from the grid, communications, charging infrastructure, and so forth. What are your thoughts, Alan? What are you seeing across your customer base? And maybe tie in, you know, the 2-bus version of infrastructure and the 200-bus version of infrastructure.
Yeah. So number one, I think is just, you know, getting the equipment and making it to be able to interconnect and coordinate to be able to do what it needs to do on large fleets. You know, we haven't seen a lot of really large fleets. We've seen some medium-sized fleets, but just give people confidence that can work. But I also think being able to show that it can actually scale. I think there's some questions in the narrative right now about whether or not charging at fleet scale can work from a cost per mile basis. And we're doing some analysis that I think will show that it does scale. And from a dollar per bus cost, it isn't any worse than it is for 100 it is for 1. But I think people have been a little afraid of that. And that works partly because of the technology that you all and others are providing that allows for optimization of fleet charging with charge management, energy management. And when we can be able to use a single 150 or 180 kilowatt charger to charge 4 buses, you know, 4 dispensers on that, then we can actually start pulling those costs down. Because, you know, for companies like MV, that's important. At the end of the day, they've got to win contracts. And to do that, we've got to be able to show how we can actually keep that charging infrastructure down. Sometimes that's something that people don't think about. They just think about the bus and they think that charging is going to happen. And then it doesn't. It's got to be reliable and make sure that things work, and also keep the electricity cost down. Everything else being equal, it should work. You know, the economics are there to be able to have savings from your diesel or CNG or whatever else you may be using to be offset by the lower electric costs. But we've got to be able to make that work with being able to do that larger scale fleet charging. And I think the technology is there. We just need to be able to demonstrate it.
Cool. Actually, Keegan, Tully from PowerOn, I'm going to pull you in to amplify on this topic, because on the other end of it, you're operating a deployment, I think, where there's Proterra buses among others, but you're going through the whole transition from a few to a lot to a gigantic amount, and you're going to have to operate all of this infrastructure: charging, battery, natural gas backups, grid connections, solar. You're going to have everything. You're going to operating microgrids with a high penetration fleet. So what are the types of things that PowerOn is doing to basically enable not just the onboarding of the buses, but the parallel infrastructure onboarding and operation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that we're able to tackle. And I think Laurie was sort of alluding to it before. You know, these are big connections, and it's really important to get planning early and work with the utilities like Hydro Ottawa to get planning and get that infrastructure rolled out quickly. And you know, as we see deeper electrification, and I think Jim was alluding to it before, you know, a lot of these transit operators and other fleets are operating essential services. And so it's more than just chargers. It's backup generation. You know, people are looking to decarbonize. Maybe they're adding solar PV, stationary battery storage, and all of these assets are incredibly valued. That, you know, they're costly, but they have a lot of value to the electricity grid. So we really work with our customers to plan out their fleet electrification needs, think through the charging infrastructure that they're going to need, and then the other electrical assets. And then we look at opportunities to really, you know, plan it out and maximize the value of those assets, because when they're not in use for backup at the fleet, they can be used for the grid and things like that, and provide services there. So we really look at all those opportunities to lower the cost of electrification and really simplify it for fleets and help them make that transition a bit easier.
Thanks, Keegan. That's really helpful. So what on the grid side, what type of infrastructure do you see that you guys have to get involved with between larger grid connections, in front of meter battery storage, working with partners to maybe install behind the meter battery storage to enable fleets? On the residential EV penetration side, on constrained loops, what are the challenges that you all are facing?
All of those things.
So tell us more. I'm just talking about them. You know all about them.
Yeah, so on the residential side, that's definitely one. And we have been working with, as you know, BluWave-ai to model that out and to get an understanding. And our preliminary data that we're looking at is showing that it probably doesn't take much more than 25% penetration on some of our loops, depending on the way that that residential neighborhood was constructed and the age of the equipment, that we could actually start seeing some overloading on the local transformers and some potential issues in that space. And so that is definitely a concern of ours, and it is something that we're actively looking to understand. And we're looking to see what types of creative solutions we can come up with, as you noted, maybe front of the meter batteries, where we could provide some additional support in that space. There's also the outstanding question around the control of the EV chargers or of the actual the vehicles themselves within our customers' homes, and helping to shift load away from those peak times. From our modeling, what we are seeing on the EV, or on the residential side, sorry, specifically, is that kind of time when people come home from work and they want to charge their car, but they also want to turn on the oven. They also want to do a load of laundry. They also want to do all kinds of turn on their Xbox for their kids or whatever it may be. And so that's kind of the time of day that has us the most concerned, I would say, because it is a time where there's peaking on our system. And so if we can shift those loads away and in any way creative fashion, or else otherwise support the grid at that time, that's obviously beneficial. And on the more fleet side, it depends on where you are in the city, right? So there's some areas where we have more than enough capacity and we can connect the additional load and provide that additional load to our customers quite easily. And then there's other areas where we may actually require transmission upgrades. So it may be not only just our local distribution infrastructure that needs to be upgraded, but we may also have to look to upgrade transmission infrastructure, because as all these loads are coming on to the system at the same time throughout the province, it's also putting stress and strain on our transmission system too. So really, I just can't stress enough how important it is for customers to get in with us upfront and to start working with an affiliate of ours like Envari, or as Keegan also has, which is PowerOn, like to those types of customers where they can, or those types of companies who can help support and kind of bridge that knowledge gap between that customer and the local distribution company.
Okay, thanks. Let's take it up a level. Laurie mentioned, the challenges on the transmission side. There's a generation side, the transmission side, the distribution side, all who have to deal with more energy being delivered through the grid to electric vehicles. So Bronwyn, at kind of a national and policy level, what are some of the programs that are kicking in to basically enable that? Because, arguably, if enough energy has to move to electric vehicles through the wires, it has to come from somewhere. It has to go through wires and it has to get to depots or to our homes. What are the types of things that you all are enabling the overall energy industry with at a government planning level, I guess?
Yeah, great. So basically, there's lots of programs that we have in implementation. Some are newer than others, as you can imagine, because of the recent budget announcement just this past week. But essentially, within our role in the Office of Energy Research and Development, as I mentioned in my introduction, we're focused on the innovation stage of technologies in that innovation stage. So we're really trying to identify, those technologies, those service models, as well as those other opportunities that can help to enable those future technologies that are needed for, the future state of the electricity grid, as well as our energy system as well. And if you look at it from more of a deployment side of things, we do have some active programming that was released in the previous budget and has been reallocated as well. So our Smart Renewables Electrification Pathways program is one of those particular programs that is looking at how can we meet the decarbonized energy system needs, and looking at it from adding in grid modernization components. So it's not just solar panels, but solar panels with advanced inverter functions, as well as the ability to have storage and other key components within the renewable energy systems that are implemented as part of that large scale infrastructure program. But like I mentioned as well, more recently as part of the most recent announcement in the budget, there will be programs coming forward to support the charging infrastructure as well as the adoption of ZEVs as well. So stay tuned for those as those have been mentioned in the news more recently. But like I said, we're really involved in that innovation space and scaling up so that we can meet the solutions of tomorrow.
Bronwyn just mentioned, some of that infrastructure and innovation. Actually, that I should pull you in, Kelly, because the type of stuff that you all are doing at AreaX.O actually plays into enabling this kind of transition and, more fueling of vehicles coming through the grid, as well as like communication and other infrastructure for fleets. So would you like to amplify a bit from the AreaX.O perspective?
Yeah, absolutely, Dev. I've been taking lots of notes as people are talking, because I think this is a perfect example of how we can all work together to do, a demonstration infrastructure platform that will enable what everyone is trying to do, but to be able to do it in a safe way and in a closed fashion. The private test track in particular, it's, like I said, almost 2,000 acres. So there's kilometers and kilometers of roadway, and we have a lot of infrastructure there already. So safety and security is our starting point for everything that we do at AreaX.O. And we've created a framework, as I said, that you start private and you move to public. We have level 2 and level 3 chargers that are installed. We worked with Ottawa when we were installing those in Envar to ensure they're scalable and they can ramp up. They're ready for modification. They're ready to do some of this work. The roadways, the pathways, the other areas that we have, areas of smart charging, so inductive charging. We have a platform where you could start with electric vehicles, but those electric vehicles are going to get smarter and smarter. And that's another area that we play in. So, a lot of the work you're doing at BluWave, Dev, in the grid and the AI and the cloud, imagine if the vehicles are charging, they plug into the charging stations or inductive charging, they know it's Dev. They know it's that vehicle. They know it's safe and secure. There's a, encrypted handshake. They know your battery is safe to charge, right? And another big issue as we roll out these technologies in residentials and parking brigades and other areas, is it a safe battery to charge? And then they know, Deb, to send that to your bill on Ottawa, right? There's Deb charged here, ching, we'll just send that over. And that's really, I think, where the aspiration is to create that demonstration and platform for everyone to come together and showcase, use, ensure it's secure, and then to continue to build on it and modify. So I'd welcome whoever's interested in this project. We have a great infrastructure, communication infrastructure, cloud environment, or you can bring your own. So yeah, I think it's been really enlightening today, and I'd welcome everyone to come talk to us, and let's see what we can do together.